not read the bill, Mr. Speaker, is completely misleading. Mr. Speaker, I know there has been some contentious clauses in this bill, but Mr. Speaker, as moved by the chair of Finance this morning, Honorable Speaker, you will find that the bill which was proposed by Treasury, the committee looked at the bill and they proposed several amendments which are actually people-friendly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in the original bill, there was a 16% VAT on bread. And Mr. Speaker, the bill in the House, or the report in the House now, as by the committee, that VAT has been dropped. Mr. Speaker, the proposal to have 2.5% motor vehicle tax, that clause now has been dropped. Mr. Speaker, the exercise duty, which was proposed in the original bill, especially on vegetable products, Mr. Speaker, that one has been dropped. The Honorable Speaker, the eco-levy, which is, we have had many of our colleagues here discussing. This one, Mr. Speaker, as many of my colleagues who spoke before me, it can only attract on imported finished products. And Mr. Speaker, we want to move from a trading country to a manufacturing economy. We cannot be a country which is importing almost everything, including even a tissue paper. So the reason why this one is there, and we are saying it can only apply to imported finished products. But on locally manufactured products, Mr. Speaker, the tissue papers, the sanitary towels, and anything else locally manufactured, it's not going to attract the eco-levy. Mr. Speaker, some months back, we saw many of our farmers across the country. We saw in Murang'a, we saw in central Kenya, and across the country, that they were required to file their sales using the e-teams. Those e-teams, those avocado farmers who were told to give a KRA e-teams, Mr. Speaker, under this finance bill, the e-teams has been dropped. And any other small business which is 1 million and below, Honorable Speaker, is not going to attract the e-teams. Mr. Speaker, the other day, the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury, Mr. Speaker, read the budget, the national budget, 2024-2025, before this House. That budget proposed, including the increment of counties, the monies to the counties to a tune of almost 400 billion. There is an increase in CDF. There is an increase of about 50 million per constituency in electricity. And Mr. Speaker, we can only achieve that if we can pass the finance bill. Mr. Speaker, on the taxation, which we all support, the finance bill proposes to increase taxation on cigarettes and tobacco products, on alcohol, and also on betting, gaming, and gambling, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have many of our youth who have got lost because of these issues of betting and gambling. The proposal to increase tax, Mr. Speaker, is to make sure that in that space we control our young people, and also we direct them to a very good cause in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say also on the issue of alcohol. We have seen many of our young people, they have got lost and drunk with the cheap alcohol. With the increase in tax, it's going to address the...
Time up. Otiende, Omollo. You'll get. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the outset, I oppose this bill. And even having listened to the chairman on the raft of proposed amendments, to that I say too little, too late. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I think I have myself recorded 120 reasons for rejection of this bill. And Mr. Speaker, it is sufficient that the professional associations have spoken to this. The church has spoken to this, civil society has spoken to this, and Kenyans have spoken to this. There are legal reasons for rejecting this bill. There are financial and economic reasons, Mr. Speaker. There are humanitarian reasons. But more fundamentally, it is a moral question. This regime has lost the capacity for shame and does not even regard Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I was tempted to attack some of these entities, the church, some ambassadors, because they are the ones who are at the forefront for supporting this regime. But I will forgive them. I will only tell them, it is good you have realized the error of your ways. This regime, Mr. Speaker, needs to understand the etymology of governance. The whole idea of governance is that the people voluntarily relinquish some of their rights and liberties for the government to protect them. But in this case, we have a government that does not want to protect its citizens, it actually wants to decimate them. We must reject that idea. Mr. Speaker, it is important to understand that a budget is made for the people. And traditionally, it is the people who must be listened to. We have a draft bill whose origins is essentially the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF, and secondarily, the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, the Bretton Woods institutions were never made to further the interests of developing countries. The Bretton Woods institutions were established in 1944 essentially to protect and the war-ravaged countries, which essentially were all the developed countries. Therefore, when they come and they give us prescriptions, those are prescriptions that must be taken with a pinch of salt. In the 1980s and the 1990s, they gave us what was called the structural adjustment programs. It is only when Kenya, like other countries, rejected those subs that we started going somewhere. Now we are in a situation where the Bretton Woods institutions have come back in full swing in the face of the executive. It must be rejected. Mr. Speaker, it is important to understand that this bill does not protect and is not the interest of Kenyans. And some people are fear-mongering, saying that if we reject the bill, then we'll be in a crisis. We will not be in any crisis. Like last year, Mr. Speaker, when the High Court stayed the 2023 bill, the 2022 bill continued until finally, the bill was cleared. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the 2023 bill, which is already draconian enough, but is less draconian than this one. Let us reject this bill. The 2023 bill will continue, and let us have a bipartisan approach to budget making so that we can sit down and agree on the basic minimum that must be included in that budget. Mr. Speaker, I reject and I oppose. Thank you very much.
Paul Melly. Julius, sorry, not Paul. Julius Melly, Chair Education. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I rise to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill is quite progressive, and I want to ask members who have opted not to read the report, and I think as part of the parliamentary procedures, Mr. Speaker, you gave your guidance that every other bill that is tabled in the House procedurally goes to the committee, and the committee did its work very diligently, led by